and welcome to the live Q&A session for the master's programs that we offer at the University of Glasgow in archaeology. I'd like to start off with some introductions. My name is Claudia Glatz. I'm a professor of archaeology. A lot of my research focuses on Southwest Asia or the Middle East. I direct an excavation and a field project in the Kurdistan region of Iraq at the moment, where we're working on questions about how and why the first hierarchical and centralized forms of social organization developed. And we're also working on a range of engagement programs and heritage initiatives. My other research focus is at the moment on mountain archaeology and the long-term history of mountain societies. I'm here today in my role as the postgraduate taught convener. You normally meet me during the semester 1 core course in the professional and research skills course, or if you become a representative for your cohort in staff student consultancy meetings at various milestones during your master's year, like when you're giving your dissertation presentations. But otherwise, my job is mostly to oversee the different master's programs that we offer in archaeology. And those 3 programs at the moment: the MSc in archaeology, the MSc Material Culture and Artefact Studies, the MSc in Conflict Archaeology and Heritage, and each of them have their own dedicated program conveners. And those are Dr. Louisa Campbell for the MSc in Archaeology, Dr. Daniel Calderbank for Material Culture and Artifact Studies, and Professor Tony Pollard and Dr. Ian Banks for Conflict Archaeology and Heritage. We also are here joined today by 2 of our current students. We've got Hannah and David, who've kindly joined us here today to tell you a bit about their own experience of studying here. So if I could please get Louisa, Daniel, and then Tony to introduce themselves and the 3 programs. And then afterwards, if Hannah and David could briefly also introduce yourselves and then talk a bit about your experience here in Glasgow, what's been particularly interesting in your classes and fieldwork or projects that you might be involved in, so that our prospective students can get a bit of a flavor for what their time here in Glasgow would be like. So if I could please get Louisa to start.
Hi everyone, thanks Claudia for that. So as Claudia says, I'm Dr. Louisa Campbell. I am the convener of the MSc in Archaeology. A bit about myself: I am lecturer in heritage material science, so a lot of my work is based upon scientific techniques and how those are applied to our analysis of archaeological material. My own particular interest at the moment is in pigments, so pigments on statuary and paintings from antiquity. So mostly I'm concentrating on Roman sculptures and Roman sculpture reliefs and inscriptions, etc. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is based on non-destructive techniques, because I'm normally working with the material and monumental inscriptions and statuary coming from museum contexts. So we like to do a lot of our work, if we possibly can, without interfering or in any way, impacting negatively our material culture. So a lot of my work is based in the lab, and I've recently began a new program in heritage material science, which both Hannah and David were on, and I hope they enjoyed it. And that is all part of how we are now working towards using what the university have recently invested a lot of money, 1.2 million, I believe, into our new lab. So we have these fantastic new laboratory facilities here in terms of our teaching and research laboratories, where we can engage students in some of that research, and also they can go on with their own research as well. So I'm also interested in Roman archaeology. So a lot of my previous work was dealing with Roman themes and material culture, and also in the contact between Roman and non-Roman societies. So a bit of a diverse background, I guess. As I say, I'm also the convener of the MSc in Archaeology, and that's a really flexible program. The way it's set up is that you can either focus on a particular theme that you're particularly interested in, so that might be something like landscape archaeology, digital archaeologies, Celtic and Viking studies, and we're increasingly bringing scientific analysis into that as well. So you might be interested in environmental archaeology, or in my theme of heritage material science. So it's a really flexible structure there. You can either go along one of those themes, or you can pretty much mix and match different courses throughout that programme that you're particularly interested in. If you have a broad spectrum of interest, then you're very welcome to pick and choose any of the options that we have available. Most of them are on the website at the moment, so you could have a look hopefully through that and find something that particularly grabs your attention. Some of our programmes, in fact, many of them actually involve some field trips as well. So we have things like in my Heritage Material Science, we're doing some field trips out to other institutions, getting our hands onto material, creating material culture ourselves. We were out in the glass blowing workshop recently, where the students created their own replicas of Roman beads, which I really enjoyed. Other courses such as environmental science, environmental archaeology and landscape archaeology, and experience in landscape and heritage involve quite a lot of external trips as well. So you get to explore the landscape and apply some of the theories and knowledge that you're learning about in the class, and you're getting to apply that on a practical level. So hopefully that's enough to start off with, and I'm very happy to answer some questions that might have related to the programme.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Calderbank. I'm lecturer in archaeology and I am a ceramicist. And so like Claudia, I work in Iraq and across Southwest Asia, and I focus particularly on researching production techniques and the uses of ancient pottery, and in particular how these everyday practices tied in with aspects of state development. I conduct fieldwork in Iraqi Kurdistan, but also in the south of Iraq. And importantly for today, I am convener in material culture and artifact studies, also known as MCAS. So unlike the Archaeology MSc, MCAS is specifically focused on material culture. So throughout the programme, we explore the processes by which artifacts are recorded, contextualised and analysed, how they're conserved, stored and archived, and also how they're displayed and communicated to various different audiences. So during this programme, we draw on relevant scientific and theoretical approaches to material culture, which are taught both through the core options, but also through your optional courses as well. So learning on MCAS takes place in multiple different settings. It's in the field, it's in the lab, it's in storerooms and museum spaces, and the assessments are therefore varied as well. They can be written reports, public-facing blogs, exhibition designs, just to name a few. And so the ultimate aim of MCAS is to equip students with the core professional expertise needed for an associated career beyond postgraduate studies. So professional practice is therefore at the core of the MCAS programme. And that is why for those doing the MSc rather than the taught diploma, we also offer a vocational pathway as well, as an alternative to the traditional assessment or the traditional dissertation. So that would be an opportunity for you to apply what you learn in the programme to a professional work-based setting. And so I'm happy to answer any questions on the particular programme of the Material Culture and Artefact Studies. Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Tony Pollard and I am Professor of Conflict History and Archaeology, which might sound a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully when you're on the course that will become more straightforward. And I should say there that we have here, not just at Glasgow, not just the Archaeology Department, but also the Scottish Centre for War Studies and Conflict Archaeology, which gives away the fact that our course is as much, perhaps as much based in history as it is in archaeology, given the subject matter. Personally, I've worked on conflict sites, including battlefields, across a wide expanse of terrain. At the moment, I'm actively engaged in the archaeological investigation of the battlefield of Waterloo from 1815, one of the most famous battles in European history, certainly. But I'm also working closer to home with the National Trust for Scotland at the 1746 battlefield of Culloden. And I was very much involved there in the design of the visitor centre, and indeed visitor centres and visitor experience and site management will be topics that we'll be covering in semester 2 of the course, where we look at more of the management and heritage side of our subject. Ian Banks and myself will be doing a good deal of the teaching, though we will have guest presenters and lecturers throughout the course where appropriate. And our teaching, certainly that presented by Ian and myself, is very much research-based. It's very much based on the work that we have done. And indeed, it is a unique body of work. I think we are still today the only dedicated master's course on conflict archaeology. And we were a pioneer when we first started out around 2005, 2006. And I remember that first year, we literally had one student. So we've moved on since then, and we've done a lot more work, engaged in a lot of many more projects. And something else that I'm very interested in is public engagement, including military veteran engagement. So Waterloo Uncovered is the charity that I work with in Belgium, and we engage military veterans and still serving personnel in archaeological practice. And it's been well established that archaeology can act as a form, I wouldn't say therapy, but can assist with those who are suffering from conditions such as PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And we also work with a lot of people with physical injury. And that project has been extended into the South Atlantic, where we have done one season of fieldwork in the Falkland Islands, looking at the 1982 Falklands-Malvinas War. And we there took back 2 veterans of the Scots Guards Regiment, which were fighting on the British side. And that was a unique project in that it was the first time ever that military veterans had taken part in the archaeological investigation of their own battlefield. It was a hugely rewarding and emotional experience, and you will get to hear all about that and engage with that on the course. So there's a lot to it. I've heard field visits mentioned. We place a priority on field trips. We are very lucky in Scotland, certainly historically speaking, in that we're a rather pugilistic nation, and we have a number of battlefields literally on our doorstep. They range from the very famous battlefield of Bannockburn from 1314 with Robert the Bruce fighting the English under Edward II, to Culloden and various others. And there are 2 field trips per semester, so that's 4 field trips overall. And we do place a high importance on experiencing these sites firsthand. So I'll leave that there. I'm quite happy to be drawn out on those issues or any more in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Hi there, I'm Hannah. I'm one of the students on the material culture and artefact studies, and I've had a really incredible year learning lots and mainly developing the skills that I've started in my undergrad at Glasgow doing archaeology. I really wanted to specifically look at material culture. I'm particularly interested in the way that we display material culture, and that's inspired a lot of the work that I've done this year. I think also in the way that Daniel described, I've really been able to utilise the structure of the courses that I've taken. In particular, there's an option to do an independent study project, and that's allowed me to be able to incorporate the work I was already doing at my job, working for the National Trust for Scotland at the Tenement House, and do a project about kind of legacies of empire within our small archive that we have there, something that doesn't first spring to mind when you start to think about decolonisation with collections, but something that I felt was really important that needed to happen at this site. And I had a really great experience in doing that. Louisa was my supervisor, and I feel like a really great piece of work has come out of it. I think more than anything, my kind of key takeaway is it's just how nice, how much variety there is in the things that you can take. I took kind of heritage material science with Louisa, but then I also took, it was a kind of Celtic and archaeology course called the Gallic Kingdom of Alba, because I wanted to learn a little bit more about specifically Scottish archaeology and Scottish medieval archaeology. So that was a really interesting course. So I'd say overall my experience has been really positive, and the whole department's been really supportive in the kind of decisions that I was making this year, and now just working hard over the summer to complete my dissertation as I've decided to go down that route. So yeah, it's been really good.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm David. I did my undergraduate at Glasgow as well, then came back for a bit more, one more year. So I'm doing the postgraduate Master of Science. And yeah, it's really great. You can pick any of the archaeology modules. I think you can have the option of doing a few history ones as well. And so you can really pick and choose what interests you, what you think will really develop the skills to let you write the dissertation that you'd like to do. So there's a lot of transferable skills from every course that I've done, and yeah, they have really all contributed to towards the dissertation that I'm currently writing.
Okay, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves, programs, and talking a bit about your experiences as well, Hannah and David. And we've got a couple of questions that we could get started on. And the first one would be, how is the degree structured in terms of lectures, seminars, and fieldwork? Now, it's not specific to which of the programs we're referring to, but they are all fairly similar. So I don't know, maybe Louisa, would you like to get a start, and then Daniel and Tony can chip in as well?
Sure, yeah. So normally the way the program works is if you're doing a full-time study, you're doing usually one core course, which is if you're doing the MSc Archaeology, certainly you're doing research and professional skills, and that is applicable to all of our PGT students. Again, with the MSc in Archaeology, you then have some flexibility thereafter to choose the different subjects that you're interested in. But that would be 5 subjects throughout the course of the year. So 3 per semester, one of which in semester 1 would be your research and professional skills. So yeah, there's you're usually in your class physically for 2 hours per week of those, but then of course you've got associated research and study and assessments, depending on what course that you're doing. Or as Tony mentioned as well, you might be doing a course that requires you to go or enables you to go out into the field for some trips or into other institutions as well. So that's all wrapped up in whatever courses that you're taking. But that's really the kind of structure of the course in terms of your day-to-day or week-to-week commitment. Most courses have, well, again, they're flexible depending what they are, maybe 2 assessments per semester or per course. And certainly for the MSc in Archaeology, you will then, at the end of your 2nd semester, you'll be working towards your dissertation as well. So that all contributes to your credits in order to get through the course as well. Your dissertation is a really useful, as David mentioned, is a really, really important part of your degree, because it's where you really get to kind of bring together all those kind of rich experiences that you've had throughout your year. Really, during that year, you will really focus down on the kind of things you really have a passion for, and it'll enable you to pick a topic that you really want to explore at a granular, deeper level. And that's where it all gets really quite exciting. I think hopefully the students that we've got today, Hannah and David, will agree with that, because you are really excited and inspired by the topic that you've chosen. So yeah, I think that's when it kind of all culminates in something really rich and unique and forward thinking, and an ability for you to start thinking about the graduate attributes that you've acquired throughout the year as well. Hopefully there's other things that other colleagues will want to add to that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Louisa, for outlining all of that. And so the Material Culture and Artefact Studies degree overall is framed a little bit differently in that you have 3 core courses. So these would be Material Culture and Context, Process of Artefact Studies, and Research and Professional Skills, which you do all of these in the first semester. And each of these has about 2 to 3 hours in person class time. So that's about 6 to 9 hours a week in person, either tutorials or lectures. And then the rest of your time would be kind of flexible, and it's all about your own ownership of your learning process and your own time management, guided by the lecturing staff as well. And then in the second semester, you would have 3 different options for optional courses, which could be from across archaeology in the same way that Louisa has just outlined, before then over summer diving into your dissertation or indeed your vocational pathway. Other than that, a lot of the structure reflects what Louisa has just discussed.
Danielle, I wonder if you could add a bit more about what that vocational pathway looks like. What would students be typically doing for that?
So currently we have a mixture of different things based both internally within the department on working with historical material from excavations that the department has undertaken over the past 10 to 20 years, and which department members are still undertaking or are currently undertaking in Glencoe, on Arran, and in Govan. Then we have 4 students who are based at external organisations conducting work placements. So we have 2 students with National Galleries of Scotland, focusing on narratives of decolonisation, based around the objects that they have and the artworks that they have in the National Gallery Scotland. We have 1 student who is currently based with Summerlee Industrial, a Museum of Industry. And then we have 1 student who is based with New Lanark World Heritage Centre. And so a real diversity of projects, some students writing research reports based on the material culture that they're dealing with, and some students designing, conducting exhibition designs, both physical ones that will be based within Summerlee Museum and New Lanark, but also hypothetical digital ones as well. And so we're getting this real diversity of projects that are happening both within the department here, but also at external organisations.
Thank you.
Sorry, Claudia. I'll just run through the basic structure of the conflict masters. We have, again, in the first semester, 3 core courses, but one of those is the professional skills course, which is obligatory for everyone. But within our own course, we run a session called Art of War, which looks really at the relationship between history and archaeology when it comes to conflict. And we cover things like the anthropology of war in there, the theory of conflict, concepts like the military revolution, which is really an evolution, as some of you might know. But we also, during that first semester, run a course on method and practice. And that is basically introducing you, certainly in the classroom and as we can practically, if those opportunities arise, look at the specialist application of archaeological techniques to conflict archaeology. And they can differ somewhat to traditional archaeology. For instance, conflict archaeology has played a key role in the introduction of metal detector surveys into standard archaeological practice. And I think For those who are concerned about not having much in the way of archaeological experience, don't worry. We are used to easing those people into the subject. In fact, one of our real success stories was an American student who came to us with a undergraduate degree in English literature. And she did very well on the course and went on to do a PhD with us, a very good PhD on Jacobite material culture. So please don't feel that you need to come to the course with months and months of fieldwork experience. And for those that do have months and months of fieldwork experience, likewise, we do think that you will learn from that method and practice module. That's been our experience with experienced archaeologists we've had on the course. And then in semester 2, we present another 2 optional courses. I should have said that each of those 3 modules or courses will take up 2 hours each. I think this is pretty much what Daniel said, 2 hours each per week. And the rest of the week is essentially your own study. And we do present you with classwork, with essays, if we want to use the old-fashioned term. And in semester 2, we really start, having presented you with the basics, we really start to look in depth at the practice of conflict archaeology across the globe. And we have 2 courses there, one of which is focused on the UK, and it's called British Battlefields. And there we really focus in on issues like the presentation and management of battlefields, government intervention in the preservation and conservation. And again, Ian and myself have played a key role. We were key players in developing battlefield conservation measures implemented by the Scottish Government some years ago. So we will look at case studies, for instance, from the UK, but also comparing with practice in the US there, despite that being a focus on Britain, just as a comparator. And we also have a course called Modern Warfare, which takes you, archaeologically speaking, through from the Battle of Waterloo in 1815 up to and beyond the Falklands-Malvinas War of 1982. So we'll be looking at a number of case studies which combine both history and cutting-edge archaeology. And as I've said, there will be field trips, 2 per semester. One of those is an overnighter in Inverness when we introduce you to the battlefield of Culloden and allied sites like Fort George, but we'll be going to Bannockburn, Flodden, which takes us across the border into England, and other sites. So there is a full palette of opportunities and experiences there. And I think the special thing about the course, something that's worked very well in the past, is that we're very reactive to opportunities. And so if something comes up that we can engage the students in, we will do our utmost to offer it up to you. So in some cases, it's a case of watching this space. And when it comes to that second semester and the options, you have other archaeology courses, as my colleagues have already described to you, but also you have options from history and war studies. So you have a huge opportunity there to hone in on your own personal interests.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if Hannah or David would like to add anything in terms of the structure or how you have found the division between class time and self-study, if there's anything you'd like to add at this moment. And if...
So you're not on campus that much, even with 3 classes, it could be 5-6 hours on campus. So you're talking 80-90%, I would say, is self-directed research, study. You've got to do your readings for the classes, and then every class does have assessments which are spread out, so it's kind of constant. You're constantly working on something.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say same experience. I think just particularly with the courses that I ended up taking from my the set courses for semester 1 and the options from semester 2 meant that the kind of division of time was slightly different. I think semester 1 was, as David describes, pretty constant. Semester 2 has been slightly different in that, because I had a bit more kind of self-led courses, that it wasn't as constant. And obviously then it's more important to manage your own time. But obviously, if you've got to come into campus for your lectures, there's loads of spaces that you can utilise to be able to do your studies. We've got the JMC, which is a big kind of study building, plus the library as well, and plenty of other options that especially I like, specifically postgraduate. And I found all of those spaces very conducive environments to focusing when you've got quite a large workload upcoming. So yeah, it's quite easy to manage your time with those.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, so we have now questions coming through, and Tony, you already talked quite a bit about fieldwork. So one of the questions we've got from Rachel is, how do we get involved with fieldwork opportunities? And now the thing just jumped, so I couldn't see the second part. And when does this happen? Maybe I'll just kick off and say there's a wide variety of fieldwork opportunities going on. And the best way to engage with them is both within the classes, that you become familiar with them, but also just see what staff members are doing, go on their websites, grab them in the corridor, ask them about their fieldwork. But let's see if Louisa, Daniel, and Tony have more specific examples to add. Yeah, Louisa, please.
Yeah, Daniel already mentioned earlier about the field schools that we have. The defined field schools are generally for our honours level students, but there often are opportunities for postgraduates to get involved in them, and they normally run, well, they always run over the summer. They're the more defined ones. But Old Govan Church in Glasgow is a particularly good one in that sense, because it's a really vibrant, engagement project, really, where the local community are really heavily involved, and that's Professor Driscoll that runs that. He's run that for several years, and it's really got some rich content, and their focus as well on historical archaeology, on Vikings. It's an ancient kingdom, Old Govan, and so there's a lot of really exciting information coming out of that. We've also got some work with Dr. Kenny Brophy, who again is very focused on engaged archaeology. He's recently worked on the Garden Festival. You may have seen that. We've had a lot of press with that. And he's looking also now doing some excavation in Kelvingrove Park, which is just right next to the university. So there's a lot going on there, and there's always, as Tony said as well, things that come up during the year that you can get engaged with, depending on who the staff are, and they've always got something going on. So it's a question of getting used to it, and as Tony says, it's an evolving situation where things come up, opportunities arise, and it's not always just with us as staff members in Glasgow Archaeology. There's other things that come up with our partner institutions as well, so we're always feeding that into students as well, encouraging them to get involved in those different activities as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on that you can certainly get involved in. And don't forget that also things like working in the archives and working in the museums is all part of your fieldwork experience, because it all comes together to enhance your practical skills in archaeology. And also it's these transferable skills and graduate attributes that you will then take forward into your career, whether it's in a particular field of archaeology, a particular specialism, or in another part of the heritage sector, or indeed out of the heritage sector. Everything that you're learning and all these experiences that you're getting a chance to be involved in are really, really useful for enriching your your skill set, and as I say, transferable skills as well. So fieldwork can be a broad variety of things, is really what I'm trying to say as well. It's not just being out digging in the field. We embrace fieldwork in lots of different, whether that's in the field excavating or doing some post-excavation work in the laboratory, or so it is working with other specialists in the laboratory, or as metal detectors, what's coming out of that. and all that analytical stuff in the lab as well. So all of these things are really useful experiences that enrich your experience here at Glasgow as well.
Yeah, Daniel, Tony, do you want to add something to that?
No, that was quite comprehensive, but just to emphasize that fieldwork is, especially from a material culture standpoint, stretches beyond the actual excavation in the field. It's the how do we deal with this material culture after it's produced? How do we record it? How do we archive it? How do we conserve it? How do we analyze it in effective ways? And so we have a vast archive of material culture that has been produced from ongoing excavations that have been run by different members of staff in the archaeology department, some of which Louisa has just outlined, where there are opportunities to work with this material. And so that will be part potentially of some of the vocational pathway that's part of the material culture and artifact studies course, which I think there's been a few questions about. So I'll wait until we get to that.
Yeah, we don't have in complex archaeology a vocational pathway, but we have a very good record of students moving on to PhDs and into allied careers. And as has been said, there's a lot more to fieldwork, if I can use air quotes, than going out and digging holes. And we have assemblages of material from earlier projects, which we're still processing, which there'll be opportunities to engage with, which fits really nicely with material culture and artifact studies. As I've said, I'm continuing to work at Culloden, which is very exciting. And there may well be opportunities. I think we're doing a week's work in October on site, and I'll be going up there certainly for a couple of days when I'm not teaching in Glasgow. And there should be opportunities, if you so wish, to take part in that. But again, like most things, a lot of this will be down to your own initiative. We probably won't be running a coordinated effort to get students to Culloden for a number of days, but we can certainly facilitate it for you to find your way there and engage in that project if you so wish. And that this year was followed, the last season we did, last autumn, was followed up by a wonderful weekend that we spent processing the finds, which included a large number of musket balls and other battle-related objects, which added to the material that we've excavated there and recovered there on that battlefield over the years. And I really enjoyed that. And these events are also about engaging with the public. The National Trust for Scotland engages with volunteers from the general public. And of course, if you are vocationally minded, working with the general public might be something that you will choose to do. And that's where, again, our kind of heritage management and battlefield preservation, we do have students who have gone on to be tour guides on battlefields and such like. And as has been said by all of us, we are working archaeologists, so opportunities do arise. And we look forward, if that happens, to presenting you with opportunities there.
Thank you, Tony. Hannah or David, do you have anything to add to the fieldwork side of things? If you have done already some fieldwork or you're planning to as part of the dissertation work that you're undertaking?
I'm going to be doing, as air quotes, fieldwork by visiting museums, recording my experience of those museums and the displayed material culture. It's something we work quite a lot in a kind of material culture and context course that you do. And so really taking the skills from that course to apply to my dissertation. So I haven't started that just yet, but with the other field trip that we did on the course, which was to Kilmartin Museum, that's the kind of process which I'll be following in going around the museum. It's a great museum and really quite inspired my dissertation. So I think getting involved with what you can, making sure that you're going to be available for the fieldwork that's on offer is really a valuable opportunity, and you never know, it might inspire you to go on and do something specifically with that. So yeah, don't be scared if you're not getting on digs, because actually if you're interested in museums and material culture, then there's plenty of places to go and visit, particularly in Glasgow, and it's all free as well, which is handy.
Yeah, Govan Old's a fantastic dig. I've been there 3 times now, I think. So yeah, if the opportunity arises, definitely go for it. It's very close to the university. It's yeah, great access links. It's a fantastic site. It's been occupied for I think about 1,500 years or so, and they're still putting up lots of really interesting stuff. There's a lot of stuff turning up there. There's a lot going on. So it's a really, like Claudia said, vibrant site to be involved with. So I felt really lucky to be there. So if you do get the opportunity, then definitely go to Govan. And then if you're doing a dissertation, then Hannah says there's a lot of fieldwork opportunities that you'll be able to do yourself if you're doing, depends what your topic is, of course.
Yeah, so plenty of fieldwork opportunities in all of the different programs. So we've got another question. In fact, we have 2 questions for Daniel about explaining and elaborating a little bit more on the 2 pathways that we have for the Material Culture and Artifact Studies program. We've got one from Tamana and from Elizabeth here. I think they're mostly the same question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for those questions. So yeah, as part of Material Culture and Artifact Studies, you get the choice in this period of the year right now over summer to go down the traditional kind of dissertation pathway, the more academic focused pathway. And then you have a vocational pathway. And so the vocational pathway is designed essentially to maximize employability when you graduate within the wider sector. So you would work directly with material either held here internally within the department, or in an external museum, archaeological unit, or other cultural institution. So you would undertake direct kind of work-based learning that you've taken from your courses and apply it to an assemblage of material. And then you would document this as you go along in an e-portfolio, which you could then take forward to employers after your studies have finished. And so it's kind of more of a direct work-based piece of independent project rather than the traditional dissertation.
Great. So you've all been prompted. We're going to close this chat really soon now. So if there's any more questions, please pop them in the chat. In the meanwhile, I think I'm going to ask our panel if there are any tips that you'd like to share with our prospective students today, particularly Hannah and David. Anything you wish you'd known before, if someone told you about studying here at Glasgow, anything that would make your life easier, or what to specifically enjoy when you're here?
I guess just look forward to meeting new people. I've met so many wonderful people this year, all from very different backgrounds. I think, again, because of the flexibility of taking courses maybe outside of your degree pathway, I've met people who have been coming from kind of other backgrounds like classics, Celtic studies, etc. And so as much as you obviously learn on the courses and you learn a lot from the other people that you'll get to know. And it's a really like safe environment to bounce ideas off each other. A lot of the courses that you'll take, particularly in material culture and artifact studies, are geared around group discussion and kind of talking to one another about your own opinions, because we talk a lot in archaeology about how everyone has their own biases that will impact on the way that they see the world and how they interpret things. And so being able to pull from everyone to be able to get a more rounded view of something is really handy. So I think my tip would be don't be scared to interact with your peers, and enjoy your free time with them, to kind of have these more informal environments to chat about things, because it will just make it more relaxing, and also just more enjoyable in the kind of all round.
Okay, so I don't think any more questions have come in. Thank you, Hannah, for your final tip. I think it was a great point. So I think this is us for this session. On behalf of everyone, we look forward to welcoming you in Glasgow in the autumn, to meet you when you arrive. And if you have any more specific questions, there's a website link now in the chat, but also look up the program conveners and drop them an email if you have any specific questions about the programs that you've registered for. So I think that's goodbye from us, and thanks for joining.